I'm Chuck, this is What is the Wheel, and today we're going to reassemble and install the head. So a couple of weeks ago I did a video on reassembling the Predator engine and turned it into a two-parter and turned it into a multi-parter because then I thought I had installed the piston upside down, took the motor apart, checked it, turned out I had installed it correctly, but then to have the full What is the Wheel experience, I had the head off. I went ahead and took the head back apart so that I could reassemble it on camera, because also during the fiasco with the piston, I somehow managed to lose almost all of my stored video footage. So today we're going to put this back together again, install the valves, put it on the block, adjust the valves, and there's a couple of little things I did that I'll also show that I did off camera. All right, let's get to it. All right, we're going to put the head back together again. The first thing we need to do is, if you have taken it completely apart and you've taken the push rod guide out and you've taken these studs out, you need to put these back in. They are torqued to 17 foot-pounds. I did not remove them. You don't really need to unless you're doing something drastic like welding fill in, because you're really going to port this rascal out big time. So these I'm not worried about. I did check them. They are torqued correctly. The next thing you got to do is this little seal. If you took your motor apart and can't remember where this thing went, this or what it is, this is a valve guide seal. It goes on the intake side, and it's just to keep the motor from sucking oil into the intake when you're running, because you got a little bit of draw in there. So let's put the let's put the valves in. Got the valves, bigger valves, intake valve. You do want to oil them before you put them in there, because remember, this is anything you'd want to oil it before you dropped it in. But this is a splash oiled motor, so it does not get tons of lubrication. So I got the exhaust in my hand right now. We'll just put the exhaust valve right in there. Intake valve, drop it right into place like that. And what I'm going to do is just roll up a paper towel and put it underneath this head to hold the valves all the way up. So you can see I'm doing a little better here. Here we go. So I want to hold the valves all the way up. We want to put our seal, we want to drop it into the motor where it'll never be seen again. You're going to put your seal, like I said, you're going to put it on the intake side. Gently push it down on there like that. We've got our new valve springs. These are 18-pounders. You compare this to the stockers, the 12 pounds, and a huge difference. Thicker gauge wire. They're also taller. We're going to put these in here. They're both the same. Those were factory Honda parts. Put both of those on there. Then we've got our retainer and our keepers. When you install these, you want to be careful. These keepers, you want to make sure they're seated, because they will put your eye out if you're not careful. So, and I also made, this is a little tool I made. It's a little short. It'd be a little easier to hold on to if it was a little bit longer. But it's just a piece of 1/2-inch PVC that I cut out so that I could get my fingers in there and push these valve springs down. And I've already got the keepers installed. When I did it before, this actually worked pretty well. To put the keepers in I go ahead and sit the keepers in the retainer, and then you could put them in position, and they would maybe drop right in there. There we go, like that. That's what you're looking to do. And then you just want to give it a little tap with a hammer. And make sure that it's actually seated. That's not going to come flying apart and drop the valve into the piston and punch a hole in the piston. We'll do the same thing with this one. Like I said, I just found it easier to, the first time, we learn from our experiences. I put the retainers on, pushed them down, and then tried to drop the keepers into place. And I found it easier to just sit the keepers in the retainer and push it down. Oops, except this one's not going to cooperate. And of course, you can't see what I'm doing because my fingers are in the way. Get in there. Come on, baby. Also helps if you sweet talk it a little bit. And this one, nope, it does look like we have a good seat there on both of them. And like I said, you can just take and tap them with a hammer. Just take the ball in, take that rag out from underneath there, and give both of them a good tap. You're actually springing them, making sure that the keepers are seated. And that, you're pretty much done with that part. The next part is we're going to put it back on the block. Head gasket. Don't forget to put your head gasket on. It only goes on one way because it's offset here. Got your oil feed hole. Actually, that might be a return. This is a 10,000ths gasket, which was the thinnest I could find. I don't know if it's going to give me any compression advantage or not. They do come in thicker sizes. We're going to make sure you've got both of your guides in place here. Just drop this rascal on. Like that. Got 4 head bolts, 2 on the outside. All the head bolts are the same length, so it doesn't matter what hole you put them in. Like that. And once again, this is just a drill. Whoops, I do have it turned all the way up. Turn this drill all the way down. I'm just going to use it to run the bolts all the way down. Okay, your next step is going to be torque your head bolts. The maximum torque is 17 pounds. We're just going to start out with 10 and do initial torque. And I would do this in a crisscross pattern. I didn't see anything. Actually, I'm going to clamp this motor down. Okay, I got the motor clamped down just to make it a little easier to do, so I'm not fighting the motor and the torque wrench at the same time. I would tighten this up in a crisscross pattern, and if you're like me, then you can't remember stuff, you can take a Sharpie and write your numbering on your head bolts so that you can make sure that you don't goof your pattern up. Even I can probably get a 4-bolt pattern correct without having to mark them. But if I get much more than 4 bolts, I really need to mark the pattern somewhere so that I can get it straight. And then our final is 17 pounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Next, we're going to put in our push rods and rockers, rocker pivots, and then we'll set the valve clearance. Before I adjust the valve, I wanted to show a thing I did. I marked top dead center with a T on the flywheel, and I drilled a hole in the top of the blower housing. And then when the T and the hole are lined up with each other, the motor's at top dead center. It's not something you have to do, but it does make it a little easier to find it. And of course, on this motor, when you're at top dead center, because you're reading off of the flywheel, you can either be on the compression stroke, where both valves are fully closed, or you can be on the scavenge stroke, where the valves are actually cycling between open and closed. So you need to make sure you get that right, or your valve adjustment is going to be way off. Time to put the push rods in. Got your little guides right here. We're going to put a little bit of oil on the ball ends of these. Like that. And the way this is shaped, this is keyholed a little bit, so you got to put them in at the top. You can't shove them just straight down the center. And the way this is, the bottom of this is shaped, and the way the lifters are shaped, these little balls just drop right into place. So easy to do. Then you're going to install your rockers. You got a ball end on that, matches the ball end on this, flat end, or this actually is a roller, really a ball end also. It's going to sit on top of your valve. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of oil right here. Right there. Take our other one, same thing. Actually, I think these are identical, but I did mark this one I had marked X, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on this side. This one, put it right here, like that, and it looks like, there we go, dropped all the way in there. Alright, then you've got your pivot points. Go ahead and lube those. I'm going to screw all the way down. And get these all the way down. I'm going to tighten them up until they bottom, then I'm going to back them off just a little bit because I need to have some play to get my feeler gauges in there. And if you want to watch a fun video, these are feeler gauges. I have a Royal Enfield Continental GT 650 video where I adjust the valves, and I cannot for the life of me remember what feeler gauges are called. I spend like 20 minutes in the video calling them the wrong thing, which is funny because I have used feeler gauges for like 30 plus years. Alright, put our lock nuts on here. We're going to back off our pivots a little bit. Pivots and adjusters, these are also for adjusting. And then the trick when you go to adjust this, it's 3/1000ths on both sides, which if you've been around two-stroke motors for a long time is pretty tight. Back in the flathead days, it was, I believe, 6 and 7 or 6 and 8 for valve adjustment. So there's a very, very tight clearance in here. But when you adjust these, when you crank your adjuster to what you believe to be the correct spacing is, and you tighten this nut up, it's going to change your measurement because there's a little bit of play in the threads, and this stop nut is going to push this adjuster down and tighten your adjustment up. But we're going to go ahead and get our 3/1000ths out and just put it in here, and we're just going to run the adjuster down until it touches, and then I'm going to back it off slightly. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, run it down until it touches, and then I'm going to back it off slightly. And then don't forget to hold your adjuster when you tighten up your stop nut. And there is a torque spec for these stop nuts, but for right now I'm just going to snug them up to get a rough idea of how close I am to the correct measurement. Okay, we're going to see if our 3 fits in there. Ooh, and it fits in there pretty loose on that side. And on the exhaust side, it is. You could just barely shove it in there. So this is too tight. This one is probably too loose. If you want to check and see, just to make sure you're not putting them too loose, go up one size to 4/1000ths in this case. So 3/1000ths is your correct adjustment, and 4/1000ths is the next step up. So we could see if a 4 fits in there, and it fits right in there. So we know this one is way too loose. So we're going to break our stop nut loose. Turn our adjuster in a little bit, tighten up the stop nut. Now on this side, I'm going to multitask, which is always a terrible idea. We'll break our stop nut loose, open up the adjuster a little bit on that one, and then we're going to check again. And 3 drops right in there, 3 drops right in on that one. So we bring our 4 back out and see. Okay, 4 still slipping in on the intake side. 4 is a no fit on the exhaust side. Nope, I can barely get it in there. So still now too loose on the exhaust side, still way too loose on the intake side. So the same thing, we'll break our stop nut loose once again, tighten up the adjuster a little bit, tighten the stop nut up, and on the case of the exhaust side, we're going to break the stop nut loose and just barely move the adjuster. Okay, make our check again. I'm going to go back to 3. Stick our 3 in here. Still really loose. Oh yeah, so the 3 is just sliding in with just a little bit of friction on this exhaust side. And the 4 is a no fit, so our exhaust is good. We're still, oh, I don't know. Actually, nope, we're still sliding in on the 4. So we're going to take another stab at it here. Whoops. Actually, let's do it this way. There we go. Break that nut loose, bring that down just a little bit, tighten the nut back up. Try it again. There's a 3 fit. 3 fits. I bet the 4 is going to fit again too. Oh, nope. Still super tight fit for the 4, but the 4 is still going in. So So one more. This is probably going to be the last time. Everybody watching is like, yes, please let it be the last time, because we don't want to watch this guy tighten and loosen these nuts up 50,000 times. All right, where am I at? That's 3. So 3 fit? Oh, yeah, 3, a little bit of drag. 4 is a no fit. Okay, so 3/1000 adjustment on both of them. The only thing left is we need to torque these nuts to 94 inch-pounds. Got our torque wrench carefully adjusted to 94 inch-pounds. Be sure and hold on to your adjuster and your hat. And okay, that's 1. And now that you've done this one last time, you want to check and make sure that your adjustment did not change, because you did tighten this nut up, so you're pushing down on the adjuster. And okay, like that, nice and snug. And same thing, nice and snug. And you want a little bit of drag. And I'm going to tell you, that's a little too much drag on this one right here. I think on this intake side, there might be a little too much drag on both of them. Now that does go in there pretty easy. Wiggly. Okay, I'm okay on that intake. Let's see about this exhaust side. Okay. Yep. Okay, they're both good. So that's pretty much your adjustment. Your head's on, your valves are adjusted, and you're ready for your next step. And what is that next step? The next step is going to be to do an intake manifold, but that's going to be another video. I said earlier that the motor needed to be at top dead center when you adjust the valves, but I didn't really go into how you find top dead center. Top dead center, TDC, means that the piston is at the top of its stroke. The thing is, this is a 4-cycle engine. It comes to the top of its stroke twice during each full engine cycle. So one is the compression stroke, which it is at the top of the compression stroke right now. If you look inside the piston hole, I don't know why I keep calling it a piston hole. This is a spark plug hole, although you can't see the piston through it, so I guess technically it is a piston hole. But you look inside the spark plug hole, and you can see the piston moving up and down. The piston is at top dead center right now. You can just put your fingers on your rockers, and you're going to turn the motor. And as I turn this motor, this is the direction it runs in, you can see that it is starting to lift the exhaust valve. And what it's doing when I lift this exhaust valve is it's getting to the bottom of the piston stroke, and the valve is opening up so that as the piston is now coming back up, it's pushing the exhaust gas out of the exhaust port. And then as the piston gets up to top dead center, you're going to see the exhaust valve close, and that intake valve is going to open up. And what's happening now is the exhaust valve is closing, the intake valve is opening in order to draw fresh mix into the motor. And now the piston is going back down again to fill the cylinder full of air and fuel. And it's going to go all the way to the bottom, and then as it gets to the bottom, the valve, and it may actually stay open slightly past bottom, depends on how the cam is ground, or how much performance you're getting out and you're looking for. But that intake valve is going to close, and then the piston is going to come back up to top dead center again. And that's your compression stroke, and it's compressing that air and fuel. And then in the case of this hot rod flywheel that we've got on this thing, which is off camera and you can't see, it has 32 degrees of advance. So it's actually going to fire the plug quite a bit before the motor reaches top dead center. And the reason for that is you start that flame front and you actually get more power that way, because you're heating that mix up, expanding that air and creating power. The earlier you start that, the more power you can produce when the piston finally reaches and passes top dead center. Obviously, if you do it too soon, that can be a problem, but there's a point before top dead center when you want to ignite that mixture. And you're coming right up to top, and I don't have to look in the spark plug hole, or as I call it, the piston hole, because I can see my top dead center mark on my flywheel, so I know I'm back at top dead center. And you've got both of your rockers are loose again, and this is where you would adjust your valve clearance. I don't know about y'all, but I'm getting pretty excited because this thing is finally starting to look like a motor again. Coming up, we'll be putting this little deal right here on there. It's going to go right there. I got to make an intake manifold for it. We'll be putting that on soon enough. And also, I'm going to do an in-depth look into these things. This is it's a knockoff of a Comet Tab 30. And that will be coming up. I'm going to try and really look into how you set one of these things up, not just how you stick it on. So everybody, like, subscribe, comment, and have a great day.